Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm so happy to have you on here, and I hope you guys can try these mandalas and have a fun time doing it. So before we get started on the mandala design, I'm going to explain our tools. So the tools I use are color-coded, so they have a color on the top of the tools. When you buy them off of Temu or Amazon, they usually just come clear. So first off, for the twirly tools, I do not use the green twirly for any of my tutorials, so you can set this one aside. As for the rods, the largest two rods, I, again, also do not use for any of my tutorials, but if you're doing like a bigger project on your own time, then of course you can use these. So now to help you understand what I have color-coded, you can lay them out biggest to smallest. The biggest one, which is the green one, next size down, we have it marked as the blue stick. And then next size down after the blue is the white stick. After the white stick, it's the yellow stick. And then we have the pink stick. And then last but not least, trying to pick them up, is the black stick. And then of course we have the twirlies. These are self-explanatory. They are color-coded already. You can color code them yourself. We use just nail polish on the tops of the tools. We can get started with the design now. For today's class, I'm using this palette. For paint color number 1, I'm using Craft Smart Multi-Surface Parchment. For paint color number 2, I'm using Deco Art Americana Canyon Orange. For paint color number 3, I'm using Craft Smart Multi-Surface Tin. For paint color number 4, I'm using Craft Smart Aqua. For paint color number 5, I mixed two colors. I mixed Deco Art Americana Bright Blue with this Craft Smart Aqua, about 40% of this one and 60% of that one. And then for paint color 6, I used Craft Smart Dark Yellow. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna get started on is the belly of the owl. So we're not going to do the very bottom row. Keep that in mind. We're gonna go about to here because after this we're going to do the back. And so if you lean, at least at that bottom row won't be smudged. So we're going to use basically all the colors, and we're going to use the pink stylus, the bigger end. So we're going to start in the middle, and you're going to drag to the deepest point or the furthest point from that middle. So we'll start with paint color 5, and you'll do this for all of our little loops here. Okay, so we're going to continue on to the next drag in the series. We're going to use the pink stylus still, the bigger end, and we're going to use paint color 2. And we're gonna start right next to these ones that we just did, staying right next to the little curved line as well. And just drag on either side. If you have small spaces like this, like over here I have a little bit, I'm gonna switch to the smaller end to fill in my gap here because I need a smaller drag. Okay, moving on to the next color. We're gonna use the smaller end of the pink stylus this time, and we're going to use a paint color 3. And just the same thing, starting right against this line here and next to the drag.
Smaller stylus paint color 3.
Okay, next we're going to still be using the pink stylus smaller end. We're gonna use paint color 4. Make sure to dip just a little bit because we want these nice and small. And do another drag.
What color again?
4. Okay, we're going to do one last little drag, and don't worry about it if you don't have any room, you can just skip this step. I'm going to use the pink stylus, the smaller end, with paint color 6, and just filling in the rest of the gaps. If you have more gaps after that, you can use just the same color to finish filling it up. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the back mandala design. So once again, please be very mindful of the tummy, not leaning it too much like this, unless you're hovering, and not touching it with your fingers. We're going to start with the blue stick. And we're going to use paint color 3. So this middle dot is very important. So make sure it's not all the way touching the very bottom. Make sure there's some room there. And if you look at this line here, it should look like it's going straight through the center of that dot. Okay. Okay, so first we're going to use the pink stylus, smaller end, and we're going to use paint color 6. So first thing we're going to do to make sure our first round of dots is symmetrical, you're going to place one right under this first line here, and 2 like this, and then one more dot across from that one so that we get these 4 guiding dots, north, south, west, east. And then once we have those 4 dots, you're going to go in each of these gaps, you're going to place 3 dots.
6.
So you should end up with 16, right? 16.
With the big end or the little end?
Little end still. Okay, next round we're going to use the pink stylus, smaller end still, with paint color 5. And we're going to place these dots above the in-between. So not right above the dots like this, but on the in-betweens. So once again, you should end up with 16 of these. Okay, next round, we're gonna use the pink stylus, bigger end, and we're gonna use paint color 2. And we're placing these once again above the in-between. Okay, and we're gonna do one more round of these kind of dots with the pink stylus, bigger end, and paint color 1. Once again, going above the in-between. Okay, moving on, we're gonna use the pink stick. And we're gonna use paint color 4. And we're gonna place 1 dot on each of our lines that you have. So you should have 5 of these. The pink stick. Okay, next step, we're gonna use the pink stylus. We're going to start with the bigger end, and we're gonna use paint color 6. And we're going to place a dot above these bigger ones that we just did. Then you'll switch to the smaller end, dip in the paint, start next to it, and drag on either side. And the drags should not be touching this dot here. There should be a space between the dot and the drags. Okay, next step, we're gonna use the same tool, once again starting with the bigger end of the pink stylus. And we're gonna use paint color 5. So bigger end first, we're going to place 3 dots like this. And then you'll switch to the smaller end and another drag on either end. Okay, next step, we're going to use the black stick and the pink stylus tool. And we're going to use paint color 3. So we're going to use the black stick first and place a dot in between our designs like that. And then with the smaller end of the pink stylus, drag down in between to make a teardrop. Next step, we're going to use the pink stick. And we're going to use paint color 2. And we're gonna place these dots right above our teardrops. So as we move on to the next step, I have good news that if you hadn't touched up the belly, it should be all dry now. You can carefully check to make sure there's no shiny paint, and then with your fingers, so that means you can gently place it down on its belly so that you don't get a hand cramp holding your owl.
Yeah, it's about time.
So next step, we're going to use the pink stylus. And we're going to use paint color 1. We're going to use the bigger end first. Oh, thank you. So we're going to use the bigger end first, place a dot above, switch to the smaller end, and then without re-dipping, dot around, re-dip, and do the other half.
What color did you say?
1. Okay, next step, we're going to use the pink stylus. We're going to basically do the same thing with also paint color number 1, using the bigger end for that first dot, and then you'll switch to the smaller end to go around. Okay, next step, we're gonna use the white stylus. White stylus with paint color 4. We're going to use the bigger end first for the first dot, then you'll switch to the smaller end, dip in the paint, and go around.
Yes.
Are we doing all of them?
Yes. Okay, next step, we're going to use the white stylus once again with the paint color number 2. And we're going to do the same thing, starting with the big end. We're not switching to the smaller end. You're just gonna re-dip the bigger end and go around with the bigger end.
Dots, okay. Or the big side wall. Right?
Yeah. Huh? The big side? Still the big side, right?
Okay, next step, we're gonna use the black stick and the pink stylus. And we're going to use paint color 6. We're going to start with the black stick, and we're going to place a dot in between like that. And then with the smaller end of the pink stylus, you're going to drag the paint down to make a teardrop. So make sure not to put your dot too high up. You want to kind of wedge it in between more than making your teardrop longer. So you should have 5 teardrops, not just these 3 here, but I did the 2 on the edges over here as well. So make sure you do those 2. Okay, next step, we're going to use the white stylus. We're going to use the bigger end. And we're going to place 3 dots like this.
Which color?
5.
White?
White stylus, bigger end, paint color 5. Okay, next step, we're gonna use the pink stick. And we're gonna use paint color 3. And we're just going to place a dot above those 3 little dots we did. Okay, next step, we're gonna take the pink stylus and we're gonna use paint color 1, bigger end for the first dot, switch to the smaller end, and go around. Okay, next step, we're gonna use the pink stylus with paint color 2 and using the bigger end for the first dot and the smaller end to go around.
Color 2, big dot and small. Okay.
Okay, moving on to the next step, we're gonna use the white stylus with paint color 4, using the bigger end for the first dot, and then you'll switch to the smaller end to go around. White stylus paint color 4,
Big end
big end, and then smaller end.
and color?
4.
4, okay.
Okay, next step, we're going to use the blue stylus and the white stylus. We're going to use the bigger end of both of them. We're going to start with the blue stylus, and we're going to use paint color 5. So with the blue stylus, you're going to place a dot, and then you're going to switch to the white stylus, the bigger end,
What color?
and go around 5. Okay, next step, we're going to use the black stick and the blue stylus. We're going to start with the black stick, and we're going to use paint color 3. And we're going to use that as our first dot, and then with the bigger end of the blue stylus, you're going to... Yes.
Number 3, okay.
Just like that, I could push it back. Oh, here it is. Thank you.
It's easy.
Okay, for the last round of walking the dots, we're going to use the pink stick, black stick, and the blue stylus. And we're going to use paint color 1.
You're using the pink stick. Yeah. Color 1.
So pink stick first, paint color 1 for that first dot. And then you'll use the black stick and place 2 dots on either side like that. And then blue stylus, bigger end, and you're going to finish off with that.
Walk it off around, okay.
Hold on, can I ask you a question?
And that's it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next step is a hard one. So we're gonna use the blue stylus, bigger end with paint color 2. So this is our first dot of the walking dots, second and third. I'm gonna start in between the second and third. You guys can go ahead and start in between the third and fourth. And you're just going to do a nice long drag down.
What color again, two?
2.
The dot on the third and fourth.
She went between the second and third, and the third and fourth.
Right?
Okay, moving on to the next step, we're going to use the pink stylus tool. And we're going to use paint color 4. So starting with the bigger end, you're going to start about right here in between our designs and do a little drag down. Then you'll switch to the smaller end and do 2 smaller little drags on either side.
So we drag them down. Okay, and that was color 4.
So, and one thing to keep in mind, make sure that the next drag down is always just slightly lower than the top one. Okay, final step for this big mandala on the back.
Final step.
We're gonna use the pink stylus, bigger end, with paint color 6. And we're gonna start at the bottom of our little drags, and you're just going to dot it straight down.
Yeah.
Just look on the screen.
I thought I was only doing 3 of those.
So if you look closely in your little bag of gems, you should have at least 2 big little bubbles, I guess. So depending on the color of your eyes, so if you have the iridescent ones, you're going to choose a lighter color for the eye. And if you have the muted gold, then you're going to choose a darker color for your eye. Okay? Okay, we good? Okay, so we're gonna use the green stick. So we're doing the very center of the eye right now. So we're going to use the green stick. Go ahead and choose the color. And if you notice, if you just place the dot, it won't cover the entire thing. So what I like to do is I kind of like to move it around just a tiny bit so that it gets around in there. Okay, so next we're going to move on to his little eyebrows, or whatever you want to call them. We're going to use paint colors 1 and 6. And we're going to use the blue stylus. And you're just kind of just going to place random little dots.
On his eyebrows?
Just alternating colors. Place a couple with paint color 6 and then change to 1 and then just kind of back and forth. And don't worry about re-dipping every time on this because we want the dots to be small, big, so. And just fill up his.
So basically just the protruding part here.
Yes.
Using 6 and 1.
Yes, 6 and 1. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the first ring around the eye. We're going to use the pink stick, black stick, and the white stylus. Sorry, and the pink stylus. Okay, so the way you're gonna choose your colors for this first round, so most of my palettes are laid out like this, where 1 and 6 are always accent colors, and then 4 and 5 are similar, and 2 and 3 are also somewhat similar. So if you put your eye, this part, from 4 and 5, then you're gonna choose a color from 2 and 3. If your eye color is from 2 and 3, then you're going to choose a color from 4 and 5. Okay? Okay, so if you look closely at this first ring, it gets wider here and smaller here. So we're gonna start with the pink stick. You're gonna go ahead and choose your color, and you're gonna start on the widest part of the eye. So you should be able to fit 2 or even 3 with the pink stick. So I was able to fit 3 with the pink stick on each side.
Your first thought was in the widest part of that
Yeah, and then I just did 1 on each side of that.
thing.
Then once you've done as much as you can with the pink, we're gonna move to the black stick. And this should fit almost, actually we're gonna do 1, I think, on each side. So I had 3 with the pink stick, and I'm doing 1 on each side like
All
this.
the same color?
Yes, we're doing this with all the same color. Then we're gonna move down to the white stylus, the bigger end. And you're basically going to place a dot and then add a little bit of paint so that they get just the tiniest bit smaller as we get here to this center part, about that much into the middle, and then you'll start on the other side, dipping, and then adding just the tiniest bit of paint to your tool. And then once you've got all of your dots in like that, you're gonna take the pink stylus, the smaller end, and paint color 1, and you're going to add little dots like this. Okay, now we're gonna move on to the second ring around the eyes. We're going to use the pink stick, black stick, and the pink stylus. So the way you're gonna pick the color for the next round, so whatever you started with, whichever side that was on, you're gonna go back to that side, but not use the same color. Does that kind of make sense? So if you started with this in here, and we went over to this side for the second round, for this third round, you're going back to here, but you're not gonna use the same color that you used for the very inside.
Okay, so when you say here, you're meaning like 4 and 5, or 2 and 3,
Yes,
but not the same color.
yes.
When you're pointing to your eyes, it's not on there. You just need to scooch up. There you go.
Whoopsie.
So let's just say I did.
Okay, so we're going to start with the pink stick. And you're just going to find, so this second round is very symmetrical, so it's not bigger on one side. But there are a couple spots further away from the eye that are bigger, so we're just going to place a couple dots with the pink stick.
Same color. Use the other one. Use the other paint, the darker you started with. Yeah, use the darker.
So I only fit about 3 on each eye, and then you're just gonna fill in the rest with the black stick. And then once you have all those main dots going around, you'll use the pink stylus smaller end with paint color 1 to do those little dots. So we're gonna attach the little gems first. You're going to use your little thing, little container of varnish. And you should have a little paintbrush that you're just going to lightly dip in there and then add a little bit of varnish to the owl. And then you'll use this tool here you should have, and you'll just lightly tap the gem, and it'll pick it up like that. And then you'll just place it, and it should stick to the varnish.
Okay.
So I would recommend evenly splitting the gems so that you don't get too many on one side and then too little on the other. So just approximately kind of split it evenly and then just start sticking.
Anywhere we want.
So I wouldn't do it too much on the back. I would just kind of do more in the front area here. Okay, once you guys have finished your diamonds, and hopefully the varnish has dried up a little bit so that you're not placing wet paint on wet varnish, but you're gonna use the paints. If you look to the side of your paint palettes over here should be A, B, and C. So you're gonna use mostly A and B to fill in the gaps, and then a little bit of C here and there with smaller dots. And you're going to use the yellow stick, pink stick, black stick, blue twirly or blue stylus, white stylus, and pink stylus. So you don't want to, you can honestly use any of them, just don't use the three bigger ones, the green, the blue, and the white. Just don't use those, and you can go ahead and use the rest, and just fill in the gaps. Just fill in between the diamonds and go around. And then so you'll fill with these paints, you'll fill in around the beads and go towards the back and leave some space in between the mandala and these dots and just kind of do like a little border around, and yeah, just fill it up.
Can you show us one that's done so we can see where you place the eyeballs?
So don't place them straight in the middle, but tilting a little to the side or up, or wherever you want him looking.